Eh bien, ça y est, j'ai largué les amarres. Next stop, 1,200 nautical miles, the island of Madeira, or the islands of Madeira. But more about that later. Je ne m'enfuis pas, je vole. But as I get underway for my major adventure of 2020, I can't but spare a thought for Patrick Childress and Rebecca. I've got June in my sails, but November in my heart. I'm too lazy to rig the pole for just right now, so I'm doing wing on wing. When I get up around the point, I think I'm going to try to throw out the spinnaker, see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to try to throw the spinnaker out. I've got it all hooked up and checked all the lines are not fouled and everything should be okay. I've turned up into the wind and I've sheeted in the main so that you could see a little better on the camera, I hope, what's going on. I've got 10 knots of wind from 120 degrees apparent. So I've actually turned up into the wind because I want the sail to go out that direction, not forward. Here's what my concern is and why I'm nervous about this. Before I had one stay, now I have two stays for the foresails. So I'm always concerned that the sock is somehow or other going to get wrapped around or stuck in between them or something. So I've got to build my confidence up in using this sail. Okay, take two. Oh my gosh. I love this sail. Well, I got it out, but you can see, my goodness, it's a lot of work and a lot of things can go wrong, you know, it just takes I had just a double half hitch in the uphaul, and it was under tension, so I had trouble getting it undone. Took me a minute to do that, and during that time the sail went into an hourglass. Ghosting along on the spinnaker across the notorious Bay of Biscay. Trust me, it's not always like this. Okay, so what was the plan for this summer? Well, plan A was to go to Newfoundland, and I was going to go there and come back in a period about 4 months, 4.5 months, but I just ran out of time. Canada is still quarantined as I cast off lines this morning. So then plan B became Greenland. Let's go to Greenland. Maybe stopping in Iceland and going to Greenland to do the east coast of Greenland. But as I left this morning, Greenland is still quarantined, and the west coast, the east coast rather, is actually forbidden. You know, there's ways you can get into the west coast, but the east coast is forbidden because they have no medical infrastructure there. So with no visibility on those two, I've decided to go to Madeira. It's about 1,200 miles from my home port. I don't know, was that 500 or 600 miles off the coast of Morocco? And from there I'll go another 500 miles back to the northwest to the Azores. So I finished the deck inspection for today on Isabel, my favorite mistake. I love all her perfect imperfections. So I came across the Bay of Biscay like this, and I entered this channel off of the northwest corner of Spain. This is called, by the way, the Coast of Death along here. And what's noticeable is that there's a TSS, traffic separation scheme here, that needs to be respected. And so I couldn't come this way because the wind is blowing really hard in this direction, really hard. There's 10 or 12 knots, and there's dozens, literally dozens of fishing boats in there. So I couldn't zigzag in between. It was just impossible. I had to make any progress, I had to use the motor. So I turned it off and I tucked, and now I'm heading this direction. And you can maybe see this. Here's the boat right here. And I'm heading at 90 degrees. So I'm heading out here, this direction, at 90 degrees. So this year I'm going to be a sailboat, and I'm just going to be the stand-on vessel, and let's see if how this all works. So I'm crossing here about 8 miles before the traffic separation scheme. Let's see if this works out. And here you can see the parade of ships coming down. They're actually heading north in the TSS. This is that channel down here that I just left with all the fishermen. So I'm doing 6.5 knots as I approach the entrance and exit to that traffic separation scheme. So I don't intend to turn the engine on unless the wind dies, because what I want to do is keep my speed and my heading as predictable as possible, just straight line and the same speed, so they can do their magic on their bridge, pick on their bridge. So if you're speeding up and slowing down and falling off, rounding up and all that, that's not very good. That was one ship captain talking to another ship captain, because at the end of the TSS, one of the ships was cutting in front of the others, and he said, hey, that's not enough distance there. And he said, well, that's all you, anyway. But you missed the first call. And that's why I don't like to use a radio in your TSSs. Because the guy on the ship that was cutting across in front, his English was terrible. I'm sorry, but it was just terrible. So that's why when you're in a crowded area with lots of ships, you know, to borrow an adage from aviation, sailboats work because of a principle discovered by Bernoulli, not because of a principle discovered by Marconi. Sorry. Those two are going to pass ahead of me, and that one's going to pass astern of me. Thank goodness for AIS. It's a little bit animated going across the TSS today. As what have we got here? 20 knots of wind, and I'm doing 7.5 knots, 7.5, 8 to 8.5 knots. I put in a second reef. That's the red line there. That new sail has a lot of life to it, huh? Really spunky. This is starting to get seriously sporty out here. But you know, I once went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. Well, 24 gusting to 30 knots. I'm sure the GoPro isn't picking it up, but if you can hear that howling in the shrouds, that's the devil's violin.
It's 25 or 6 to 4 in the morning, and I can't sleep because I've got a super tanker from Côte d'Ivoire that has a CPA of less than a mile, so I've got to watch him. Another milestone just occurred as well, and that's that I'm now geographically a little more than halfway to my destination. When I arrived there, it reminded me of this Greek philosopher Zeno's paradox, that if you reach halfway to a destination, you can always reach halfway to a destination. Therefore, you'll never arrive. And it took Isaac Newton and a German Leibniz or something like that to invent calculus that showed that the sum of an infinite series of numbers is actually a finite number. So, thanks to Isaac Newton, this sailor will arrive at destination.
Well, we've entered the Portuguese trade winds. So now it's going to be northerly winds alternating between 10 and 20 knots all the way to my destination, which is still 450 miles away. So I'm going to have this for the rest of the way. Sailing downwind in trade winds for days on end is not my favorite form of sailing. It quickly gets repetitious, even boring. I feel a bit like the cello player in Pachelbel's Canon in D, where you just do the same thing over and over and over. Anyway, let's go down below deck and I'll show you what I do to kill some of the boredom. So to fill time, obviously there's always planning to do, and obviously this is a chart of the Atlantic. I left La Rochelle, France. I plot my position every day at noontime on a chart. I'm going down to the Madeira Islands here, and then after that the next leg will be to the Azores. So there's always a bit of planning to do that you have to do. So you've got the typical usual almanacs that you study to understand where you're going, the tides and the currents and all of that. And I have the whole series of these Envy atlases. In case I had to divert someplace, I'm prepared. So I've got the whole series on board for all of Europe, and they're very, very good. I highly recommend this, and it's a much more cost-effective way to have paper charts than to buy the Admiralty charts or something like that. Of course, you have the pilot books. This is the one for the Atlantic Islands, Azores, Canary Islands, Madeira, etc. And they're quite good. They give lots of good background information, so I use them. And another aid in planning is this book of, they're called pilot charts. They show average currents by month for all the oceans of the world to tell you what to expect and the prevailing winds and all of that. So this book was written for those who adhere to the idea that to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose. Or you can just get a weather briefing, a good weather briefing, and you can go your own way. You can go your own way. So once I've got all the planning stuff and I'm reviewing my charts and navigation, all that, I have some leisure things to read through. My daughter has just written a book for young teenagers, and she's asked me to be a beta reader, a beta proofer, or whatever they call them. And so I gave this a quick read. When it gets published, I'll tell you the name of it and how to find it and all that. I have also just finished Christian Williams' book. I have to say it was just fantastic read. My only disappointment was I started reading it off of the coast of death, off the coast of Spain, and I had already. It was so compelling read that I had finished it by the time I got abeam Lisbon. So let's hope Christian writes another one quickly. And then some other novels here that I'll be digging into that some friends recommended to me. All the Light We Cannot See, Patrick O'Brien's great series, and Sailing Philosophy for Everyone. So I've got some things to keep me occupied during these downwind sailing passages. Okay, I finally got the chaussette all the way up to the top, or 98% of the way. I think there may have been a little hourglass inside up at the top that finally sorted itself out. And you can see we're doing 6.6 knots, 120 apparent in 8 knots of apparent wind. That's pretty good. I couldn't do that with my Genoa. I'd be doing 5 knots. Okay, it's almost sunset, and I don't fly the spinnaker at night. It's just not a good idea when you're solo. Well, everyone can do what they want, but I don't fly solo. I'm going to show you how I drop it. The wind isn't so strong. I could probably pull the show set down right over it the way it is. But very often what I do is I just pop the sheet and let the sheet fly out of the sheet, may even go into the water, and that's fine. It keeps a little bit of tension on it, and at the same time I can pull it down. So I'll do that right now. Okay, so there's the sheet. Well, before I'd even tied off my lines, the gendarme told me I had to go back outside and wait at anchor someplace, and they would call me in and I could then take the test. But the reason I came here was because they said Madeira would no longer require tests after the 1st of July. Anyway, I'm going to go over to the main. Safe and sound in Quinta do Lord Marina in Madeira. So, mission accomplished. Now is the time to leave. No song unsung, no wine untasted. And that is exactly what I plan on doing.